But I know she only had a will set up. So the question is, what happens to her estate if sons or kids, again, related to you, what happens if one of your kids or children have some type of, it doesn't have to be a drug problem, it could be a financial problem, or their spouse? What happens if they get their hands on your inheritance? And I'm going to talk a little bit about how the trust comes into play and the nuts and bolts of it, how to protect, because if your assets are real estate, and those assets go into, if they're not in a trust, if they go into probate court, who's going to have control over those? Now, your leases with them may or may not be, it may not state who is going to have control and authority over them, and a probate court would be able to, would oversee that. But then, once you're in probate court, you're definitely dealing with all the time costs. And the average estate costs anywhere from, even on a small estate where a client had about 2 or 3 different properties, it costs at least $15,000, $20,000. So I want you to not make a $15,000 or $20,000 mistake. That's the goal here tonight. I'm going to show you how to do it. But before we get there, many of you probably already have your LLC set up. So I want to kind of briefly go over, if you don't have it set up, I'm going to show you a great way where you can get your free LLC later on, well, not specifically today, but in one of our planning. The LLC is important for the liability reasons, but more importantly, you need to have an attorney to prep not just your LLC, but your operating agreements. When I was in public accounting, we used to do the LLC incorporation, and there's a reason why if you had your account, you can do it on your own, don't get me wrong, but there's a reason why you never saw the accountant's name on the LLCs or on the operating agreements, because that's technically you're creating a contract with the state, and an accountant can't give you legal advice, or a CPA can't give you legal advice. The state, the association here in Michigan doesn't come down hard on CPAs, but in Ohio, they've been censured, they've gotten fines and fees assessed against them, and because they are out there doing this. So there's a reason why you want to have your attorney involved. And I understand, no one wants to pay an attorney. It's a simple LLC, right? How simple is it? You send your $50 into the state. But there's a reason why, especially if you have partners. And I'm going to get into that here in a little bit. And on the actually page 2 on the second slide, talking about your LLC. Even with your LLC, it can still be pierced. And I know many of you that have your LLC set up, make sure you have your own bank account. I know it sounds trivial and easy. You'd be surprised how many don't have their own bank account set up with it. In addition, make sure you don't have someone else's, don't do the quick and easy estate planning of placing a spouse's name on that bank account just so they can have access to it. There's other ways other mechanisms out there to help assist doing that. I know why families do that. They place a spouse's name or a loved one's name on a joint bank account. And I'm here to tell you it's, at least in my opinion, you are creating more liability and potentially more problems for yourself and your family down the road. Point in fact, I had a client a few years ago where there was 3 kids. There was a couple different real estate properties. One had just been sold. Mom dies. Mom had a will. And however, mom also had one of the evil daughter's name on a joint bank account that the money from the house that we sold was placed in there, about $150,000, $180,000. Now the will said that it went to 2 kids. There was 2 kids. Who do you think got the money? The evil sister that flew up from Florida. She wasn't up here, well, she was up here a week after mom passed away, rummaging the house. She wasn't looking for heirlooms. She was looking for the bank statements to find out where the money was because she knew mom had told her, hey, I got your name on this account. So it took 2 years of litigation, conservatively $20,000, $30,000 on each side of attorney fees, and the court still said that the will didn't really matter. Will was done back in the early 90s. It wasn't our will. But it's just to illustrate the potential that can happen if you're doing this type of plan, if you're just putting someone else's name on the bank account. So I thought it was important to illustrate that in dealing with the LLC. We in turn had a client in the third slide there that actually cost him $34,000 because he didn't have, so for those of you that don't have your LLC set up, he didn't have his LLC, and guess what happened? He ended up getting sued. And it wasn't the fact that he got sued because he actually settled the case for like, $4 or $5, $6, however much, $1,000 at the time. 2 years later, 3 months after his daughter gets married, what happens? Well, he had a bench warrant out for him because he didn't fully settle it, according to him, and the papers filed in the court. And they end up getting like treble damages. Sometimes you can get it in the court, which is triple the amount, which is never fun. Plus attorney fees, which added up to, you see the amount here, is $33,000, and he spent a night in jail. It's so important. I know that's why I want to make the planning easy for you if you don't want to do it. And those of you that have set up multiple LLCs, you think it's so easy, just go do it. But make sure that you're cognizant of some of the ramifications that are out there. And in this day and age now, we were talking about the economy earlier, what do you think attorneys are looking for? They're looking for anybody that potentially has assets. And if you have assets, they're going to try to find a way to go after them and try to find certain, because they know you might not fight, right? Who's going to pay $1,500, $3,000, $4,000 to an attorney? No, just let it go. My intern won't worry about that. It's not the right thing to do because you can create this type of problem. So I want to illustrate that. If you don't have your LLC, hopefully it scares you into getting one by tomorrow. Maybe you're home. Maybe it's still snowing tomorrow. No, I'm saying have it under the LLC, definitely. But don't put someone's name on it because I know sometimes they have access. I mean, I guess if they're a signer, I personally wouldn't create the appearance that it's someone else's because an attorney can still make the argument that if there's an equitable manner there. Again, if someone's going after that spouse, I mean, you don't want to create that havoc for a spouse. I'm not saying there is, but maybe that spouse has a credit card you don't. I mean, unfortunately nowadays we're hearing, credit cards have been in default, so you in turn don't know. So definitely have it in the business's name. Take that extra step because you don't want to commingle your assets, as many of you know. I mean, that's because that's an easy, I shouldn't say easy, but again, the courts don't read everything, and once you're in the court system, and even if you have an attorney, you have someone opposing you who's going to make that argument. So you don't want to get to that point, and we in turn don't want to make it easy for them. Now, with regards to, I'll mention real quick, one of the reasons you may not want a single-member LLC, you may not have any other choice because you're opening up yourself. You may not want to have a spouse on as a multi-member, but there may be tax reasons. You in turn the IRS may not allow you to be taxed a certain way on a single member. Have I seen it? No. I talked to my colleagues across the country about it, and it's there for the IRS to use at some point. So don't make it easy for them. It's just something to be cognizant about. Also, whether or not you want to be manager managed or member managed. I know some of you, or most of you may be Michigan LLCs. There's also Nevada LLCs that a lot of people have heard about, Wyoming LLCs, and some of them create additional privacy matters for you. And what are you trying to protect? What happens when the angry tenant comes looking, trying to find where you're at? You tell me where they go. They go, State of Michigan website, where is he at? Or she, where are they at? Don't make it easy for them. So there's reasons why you want to have certain things done the way, that's why it's not just a standard form to fill out. Talk to an attorney, get the right proper form. If that's your goal. If your goal is, I'm afraid I have 4 properties, tenants are all in them, and one of them's kind of shady. I don't know. I just get this gut feeling. Many business owners get a gut feeling, but they never follow it. So just know that some of these things are out there, especially if you're setting up a new LLC. Yeah, and that may weigh heavily into that decision to go into Nevada. Because if your goal and objective is, and you're coming to an attorney, you're talking to them, and there's a lot of great companies out there on which one you were talking to say, my objective is I don't want tenants, I want to make it more difficult for people to find me. Nevada helps in that avenue, but doesn't help when you're trying to get the financing. Especially, but just know this, even if you are out there and you're doing all your work here, there's still a constitutional connection here for you to be brought into court. It's no, and I know they don't, not just them, Wyoming LLCs, even when Delaware was the Fed, no one makes that big a deal about it, but you still can get sued here. It's not like it's very difficult though, because now you got to look up Nevada, and depending on what you put on your leases. But that was interesting that he told you that about the financing. You're right. He was trying to make it easier to get the financing, sign up with them, and then make it look as though you in turn disappear. Correct.